All right, I'm going to try to keep this somewhat brief in the interest of time. I know folks have been waiting and there are other items after this. By and large, this agenda item speaks for itself. I will tell you there are a couple things I do want to point out, though, that are not mentioned on the agenda cover sheet here. First off, I do want to call folks' attention to the fact that we have a similar policy, or at least a somewhat similar policy, in place for employees. There are certainly caps that are involved with that. There's a $5,000 cap on that. I know that one of the uses of that, where it saved the county some money, was in roads and bridges with respect to signage and being able to reuse signs. So it's something that does have a precedent. It has been beneficial to the county in the past. I believe that the policy on that was 6.9, BCC 6.9, insofar as it applies to employees. I have had conversations with the IT director regarding whether or not he thought it would be something that's reasonably feasible to put in place a form on the Brevard County website to allow folks to submit their particular suggestions. And the reason that I think that's important is some of the concerns that have been brought up to my office involve the possibility of folks essentially burdening certain departments with requests. And I think if we go through an internet submission and we have it farmed out that way, I think that's going to address that concern to a degree. And the other thing, and I'm not saying that this is right or is not right, but it's certainly worth at least looking at, is putting a minimum savings in place. So if someone calls and says, well, Mr. Abate, instead of using Pentel, he can use BIC, and that'll save us $7 a year, it's just not worth the staff time in processing that, because we'll spend more in evaluating whether it's cost savings than we'll ever realize. So I don't know where the magic number is, if there's a magic number. I don't know if it's 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. But I wanted to put this out there. This is something that Eileen Davis actually brought to my attention, so I do have to give her credit. But for her, this would not have ended up on the agenda, because the idea would not have, in all likelihood, occurred to me. So I know that there's going to be at least one public comment card on this, but perhaps the best way to do this is to hear public comment, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Mr. Chet Ellsworth, and after Chet, Eileen Davis. Did Chet leave? Yeah, I think he left. Eileen Davis?
I think we drove them off with the compensatory storage.
Perhaps. You are now.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. Eileen Davis. I live in 2171 Winston Drive in Cocoa. This is just an idea. When I was on city council back in '94, we were hiring a new city manager, and my goal was to reduce the cost of government to taxpayers. And we ended up including on the requirements for the new city manager an opportunity to basically get a 10% bonus, which he shared with other members of his staff, but a 10% bonus based on what he saved, and it had to be done through an audit, through the outside audit, to confirm that those savings were there. So I just wanted, when I was talking to Brian, I'm sorry, Commissioner Lober, I just wanted to bring that idea up as a way that there are thousands of people within Brevard County who have degrees in accounting, who have who have run businesses, that they've had to look at how money is spent. And I love the idea of having a minimum amount. I think that's very wise. But I just think it's an opportunity for people within Brevard County to look at the budget, give you some outside eyes that might, with all the other stuff that you have to do. And I'm also on the Budget Review Committee, so needless to say, I'm doing that in the process as well, to give people within the county an opportunity to really look at the budget and see if there's a way that can save money as long as it doesn't harm public health or public safety. And so it was just, I hope you'll consider doing it as a way to invite the taxpayers to get more involved in government and maybe help us have a lower cost. And maybe that will free up the money to fix some of this other stuff.
Thank
Thanks.
you. So that's the only card I have, because Commissioner Lober?
So one of the other things, because I didn't know whether this would be well received or horribly received, if folks are in some way equivocal, I can tell you the percentage, I'm flexible, the amounts, I'm flexible, the caps, I'm flexible, both upward and a floor cap. We can always implement this for some predetermined period of time, maybe a year, and see how it goes and revisit it. But I think this is something where there's an opportunity to be had. If you're not ready to do it tonight and you want more information, that's fine as well. But I think this is something where there is no incentive, or there is a minimal incentive for folks to basically be good Samaritans, go through our budget and offer us the benefits of their training and experience and knowledge. This gives them at least some incentive. It may be a small incentive depending on the number. It may be a reasonably large incentive, but it puts us in a position of benefiting in the same way that private industry benefits from doing this sort of thing. As I mentioned earlier when I introduced this, it's not without any sort of precedent in the county. It's simply applying, instead of to employees, to members of the general public. And with that, I'll turn it over for discussion.
Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to be clear, I will be voting in favor of moving this forward. I just had some questions, and maybe you can answer this, as an attorney or.
I'll try.
Yeah, I'm just worried about liability issues due to, individuals that claim that something that we implemented was their idea. Do you see a way that we could?
I did have that concern, and Eileen, I think the one item that she had that was a caveat is it couldn't hurt public health or safety. You'll notice that's on here, and there's several other items on there. So I can't detach the attorney hat when I'm putting these things together. And one of the items that I put in there, if you look, it's that we would have to have, prior to granting any sort of an award based on this, we would have to have a written finding either by the county commission or by our designee, and we may want to designate it based on dollar value, that but for the proposal, we wouldn't have implemented the change. There's some other items, including no employee of Brevard County has proposed the same or substantially similar suggestion within the preceding 36 months. We can adjust that down or up.
I'm not complaining. My question is, do you think we would get sued because of that?
I think our chance of getting sued for the last agenda item is much higher than our chance of getting sued over this.
Thank you very much.
So is it possible anyone can sue anyone for anything, but
Okay.
am I concerned that there would be a meritorious lawsuit over this? It wouldn't keep me up at night.
Okay. What about people claiming the county intentionally waited 18 months? Do you think that would be an opportunity? I was just trying to, put on, just trying to find issues. Again, I'm for this. I just would want to make sure this was as tight as possible so we wouldn't put Ms. Bentley in any tough positions.
Again, I'd have to punt it to her because this is certainly more of her wheelhouse than mine, but it's always possible that someone's going to sue you. My concern is never, are we going to get sued? Because we've had people parade up here many times threatening to sue, and it generally results in them not getting what they want. That's not the concern. The concern that I generally have is there a good likelihood of there being a meritorious lawsuit? And with respect to that, again, I'll punt it to her, but that's not going to keep me up at night, that particular concern.
Okay. In your professional experience, do you think that there's a reasonable possibility that there would be someone that would sue based on the cost savings, that they believe that the savings of the county was much larger than the way we figured? Do you think that potentially would be a possibility, or would there be a way to mitigate that in the potential ordinance?
I'm sure that we can mitigate that, and the way, at least at first blush, that occurs to me with respect to that is indicating that we have to have a finding as to the specific amount of savings. I can include that as another numbered item here. We can say number 7 and include that. And that's, I don't know that that's a huge concern, but it doesn't hurt to add that because, any contingency that you can plan for, even if it's unlikely, it's better to plan for it.
Okay, and one more question. If someone identified a savings for, let's say, some of the Sorrel money,
Sure.
There's limitations on how we spend the Sorrel money. I imagine this would fall outside the scope of the Sorrel funds. How would we then pay this if that was the case? Would that come out of general fund, or what would be the way to make that award if it was from a pot of money that we did not have the ability to?
I can firm up on the 4th numbered item there that the proposals have been implemented in a manner compliant with all applicable policies and procedures. I can expand that or perhaps add another numbered item if that doesn't end up getting wordsmithed to a way that reads well, to essentially say that we have to be entitled to grant an award from the same source of money that is the beneficiary or the source that's realizing the savings.
Okay, I appreciate you spearheading this. Certainly, there are a lot of issues to deal with, but I'm going to support you on this
Thank
as you
you.
move forward.
Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, when I heard this idea right out of the chute, I was thinking emotionally. I thought, wow, what a great idea. Then I thought about it for a while, and I think it's too subjective. I think it would be cumbersome, and we already have a citizens budget advisory review, so we already have that in place. So we're reinventing the wheel, And I think we're going to beat it to death, and I don't want to spend another 3 hours here on something that we already have. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to support, I'm not going to support this tonight. I think it's a little bit of a logistical nightmare, who's going to judge it? And if all staff gets done and they retire, they're going to start putting ideas because they know all the secrets. Not that you would do that, Jim. But I just think we're creating I just think it's just not a very good idea. I hope people are just coming forth with good ideas to save themselves some taxpayer dollar money. I mean, I certainly would, but I don't even want to try to explain to people in my district why other people are getting part of their tax dollars when we don't really know how we're going to measure all that, because it might be a good idea, it might not be a good idea. I mean, I'm just not going to support this tonight.
So in short, in terms of reinventing the wheel, I just want to say, we have the folks that are appointed who are willing to serve on the Budget Review Committee, and they're great people. We've got one sitting in the second row who spoke on this particular item, but that is a unbelievably infinitesimally small percentage of the overall populace here in Brevard. It doesn't represent folks that have, the array of technical experience and expertise that we have floating around Brevard. And the goal with this is to incentivize people who otherwise, right, wrong, or indifferent, would not be part of the process, would not spend their time, would consider it a waste of time, would rather watch perhaps paint dry, to go and look at those items that fall within their areas of expertise to benefit us. And as far as cutting a check to someone, if I have a constituent that comes in and says that they're upset that we cut a check to someone out of their taxpayer, out of what they paid in taxes, my answer is, would you rather pay more in taxes and not have cut that person a check that represents a small fraction of what they saved the county? So I don't have a problem responding to that if someone's upset about that. They're certainly entitled to be upset, but I think the benefit more than offsets the detriment. Again, I'm not pushing to get this thing done lickety-split. If this is something that folks want more work done on, I'm happy to bring it back. This was basically put on to float the idea to see whether there was any palatability, and if so, to get some direction either to move it forward or at least to enable me to hem up whatever I need to firm up on this particular item, to get it in a place where we can put it in place. And again, if it's a horrible idea, if we implement it for a period of time and we find out it's just too much work, we just don't renew it. We don't re-implement it. I'm flexible with it, but I think it's something we should still, at least within certain caps, perhaps look at implementing. If 150,000 is too high, we can lower it to 75,000 or any other number that is to everyone's approval. But that's where I'm at with it.
Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I would like to mention also that we already have something like this in place for employees. In fact, since I've been here, we've done that several times. In fact, I think the one that I think of first is the guy that came up with the idea of shutting off lights on automatic timers with motion, so that rooms didn't stay lit for hours on end if nobody was in them. So I don't know. I still come back to the fact that it's very, very cumbersome, and you're going to just spend hours and hours of time trying to figure out all the particulars of how it's going to work and how we can protect ourselves and how we're going to protect the person. And I think it's a really good idea on the surface, but I can't support it.
And Commissioner Tobias, did you hit your button? Because I don't think it's coming through if you did.
No, Madam Chair.
Oh, you were leaning to do something else? Okay. Well, no, I saw you lean forward. I just wanted to make sure you weren't trying to
He's being
tag
sneaky
to
about it.
comment. Commissioner Lober?
No, in terms of that, I think, and it's BCC policy 69 dealing with employees. There is a $5,000 cap, as I understand, with respect to what you mentioned. That said, if that has been a success, that's all the more reason to try something like this. We can cap it at, like I said, any number that folks are comfortable with. But I think this is something where, even if you're right, let's say this takes hours of our time, if we save an appreciable amount of money, I don't mind spending hours on something that saves taxpayers' dollars. If it's a 10-cent savings, we'll never do it again. But if we're talking big money, I'm happy to sit here for hours longer if that results in us having an appreciable savings for the folks that are paying into the taxes.
And I'll just comment, I think on the surface it sounds like a wonderful idea. I think the danger, again, and it's funny because you made a comment on the first thing I had written down and Commissioner Pritchett made a comment on the second, is the subjectivity. Because if there's people that don't value, you know, us expending resources in Parks and Rec, and I hate to pick on them, but they're the ones that usually get cut first. But there's obviously a large amount of our population that does value our parks and our services the Parks Department provides. But if your commission politically doesn't believe so, will we consider that a savings when they're cutting the services of taxpayers? And the biggest issue that I had with this whole thing was rewarding people with other people's money. You're taking somebody who isn't an employee and you're giving them your tax dollars. Now, do they save money? That's great. But with that subjectivity factor along with that, it's just, I can't get there. Although in spirit, I think it's awesome. I think it's fantastic. But we have a budget review committee. We could expand that committee. We could make it larger. We could have people delve in. And I think intentions are great, you know, with what you're trying to do here. And I think it's awesome. But I think that there's that danger. It's just too subjective. And as far as our time goes, obviously, we don't mind spending the time. And we all sit here for hours on end. We meet with constituents. We go to meetings. We have our own meetings. This is staff time because we can't equate that. So if we have staff running in circles, chasing down every idea because, say, one commissioner, maybe only 1 out of 5 or 2 out of 5 like it, and staff spent 4 hours analyzing how much money they're going to save, where is the savings in actuality? So I think it would just be very difficult to manage.
Okay, and if that's the direction and folks don't want me to see if I can come up with something that's more specific to address some of those concerns, I'll let it die. If there is some potential interest, I'm happy to work on it and see if I can bring something that's a little bit better phrased to
And I
address
think
some of these concerns.
within an organization, it often works because there's the incentive of the employee, obviously, who works within that organization to know whether or not it's something feasible going to be supported by management.
Right.
But I can't imagine sending Frank a whole bunch of long laundry lists of stuff saying, could you save us $50,000 here? And then you spending 6 hours on it, giving it to this department head, who gives it to their supervisor to chase it down and to pull numbers to find out if it's going to save money. And then, oh, by the way, probably 8 out of 10 probably won't. Or may not be supported by the commission to either cut that service or to change a level of service based on the suggestion. That's just my opinion. I think it's a dangerous path.
Okay, well, I appreciate the...
Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to point out, I don't think this is unprecedented. I'm not going to admit to watching Jerry Springer's, but at the bottom, there was something called Crime Stopper. And what law enforcement often does is provide financial incentive to individuals for tips that lead to the arrest of criminals. So it's taxpayer money that is going to, and I'm sure they get plenty of, you know, leads that don't go anywhere, but, you know, that they find benefit in rewarding citizens that lead to public safety, or which I imagine would be less taxpayer money. So, you know, this really isn't all that outside of the box. And I'd like to point out to Commissioner Lober that I greatly appreciate just the way that he brought this forward. I think Commissioner Pritchett a long time ago had said that before we got into anything and we used staff time, the proper way to do it was to bring it up. So even if we do go down on this, I think we have to compliment Commissioner Lober for bringing it up this way.
Is that called getting shot down gracefully?
No, listen. I'm still strongly with it. I'm just pointing out that if it's good enough for law enforcement, I think it should be a
And I'll
public
just
entity.
point out that most of those rewards are used from property seizure and forfeiture through, you know, crimes and stuff that's usually where that pot of money comes from.
Do you have any data to support that, or is that
Well, I know that's, I could show you.
that's a no?
Yeah. Okay, well, I didn't know you were going to try to use that as an excuse.
I'll save us the symbolic loss on this and let it go.
I'll make sure I bring it next meeting. Commissioner Pritchett?
Thank you, Commissioner Lober. I'm going to elegantly reject your opinion. She thought it was coming, but you come up with great ideas. This probably isn't my favorite one. But as Commissioner Tobias pointed out, I really appreciate you bringing this forward before we spend a lot of
Thank
work
you.
on it. Thank you.
No, I respect where you all are at. I mean, they're valid concerns, there's no doubt.
Okay, was there a motion on the table?
No, I don't think
Okay.
I made a motion. I don't believe that Mr. Tobias did either.
All right. Moving on to item 4. Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of months ago, I was trying to find the location of a TDC subcommittee meeting, and I came across something that surprised me a little bit. Many of the TDC meetings are at hotels. I asked the tourism department to provide me a list of how many of these county meetings, or how much of money was spent for these county meetings at these hotels. In 2018 alone, this was more than $8,000. Perhaps even more concerning, many of these venues limit public access by charging parking. One hotel, for example, charges $9. There's simply no good reason for this. Throughout the county, there are many government buildings where these meetings can take place, saving taxpayer dollars and ensuring open access to citizens. I'd include one additional possibility, which are institutions of higher learning where such space is given free. This is to account for meetings of the Sorrel group at FIT. Additionally, my suggestion would be to give the county manager the authority to waive this policy in writing in order to account for emergencies and other highly unusual circumstances. So my motion is direct staff to institute a policy requiring all advisory board meetings to be held in government facilities or, if available at no cost and in a location fully accessible to the public, institutions of higher education. The county manager shall have exclusive authority to waive this policy in writing. That's the motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Lober?
I would ask that you consider one, hopefully you see it as a small amendment to that. I like where you're going with this. I think it's horrible that we have anything that is at a location where they would charge for parking and therefore in any way restrict the public from being able to go. But that said, there are, and I've not seen that myself, but I absolutely believe you when you tell me that was the case. That said, I'm happy to limit it to locations that don't cost the county any money. I know TDC recently met at the zoo. I know that there are hotels down in Palm Bay that have comped any sort of fees or costs for TDC to meet. And I don't want to restrict folks unnecessarily if there are other options that are free and are accessible. If you want to limit it only to free, perfect. If you want to limit it such that they can't charge parking or we can't have meetings in places that charge parking, perfect. I think that's brilliant. But I don't know that I'm on board with restricting it to just governmental facilities or institutions or academic institutions.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
I think it's all if you've been to many of these, I think it's all, they may comp the room out, but then they charge for refreshments and all those other things. I have a list of the meeting costs that range anywhere from, $302 all the way up to $1,347 from a list of hotels that was provided to me by the TDC. So listen, I honestly have no problem if these were all zero and they comp the food as well, but this is just $8,000 that could be spent on advertising or a whole host of other things other than these certain facilities and what they provide.
And I can support that. If we say basically no charge, period, including incidentals, I'll support that.
And yeah, I would amend my motion. My goal was to provide access at no cost to the public, as well as to zero out that $8,000. So my motion would be amended as long as there was no fee in any way to the county, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Pritchett?
Yeah, Commissioner Tobias, I'm fine with this. I think the only problem we had was the TDC, and I think that got changed. So I asked the county manager, and he said they don't have any other boards are involved in this. But I'm fine with the first way you had it, because if you have a board meeting, let's say you have it in a hotel and they're letting you do it, I don't think it's inappropriate for someone on the board to go buy a soda. I don't have heartburn with that. But I think as far as using the facility at no cost would be a good one, sir, so it's not coming out of taxpayer dollars. So I'm probably a little more comfortable with the first part of it before we changed it. I think just as far as having the costs there and maybe the parking, but I don't think it's so bad if somebody visits the soda machine or picks up a terrible bag of fries while they're in the meeting. But so those things don't seem to concern me because the public doesn't have to spend money on that anyway. So I think the way you wrote this, I'm fine with it. I'm not sure it's necessary, but if it gives us a little comfort so it doesn't happen again, I'm fine with it. But
Commissioner
And
Lober?
if I may, this is just the way that I took it, and if I'm incorrect, I invite you to jump in and correct me on this. But I think the concern is that it's not that folks are on their own volition individually choosing to buy things, but rather they're buying that, and incidental to that, the room is being comped. So it's not that you or I want to go to the snack bar and get a Diet Coke or a Coke. It's that they're buying that and they're getting the room for free along with it. And I have no problem. If people want to spend their money in any venue, God bless them, go spend your money. That's great. Half a cent will go to the lagoon. And I think that's where he was going with it, and that's why I support that. But if that's not correct, please let me know.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Again, I really don't care how this is worded as long as taxpayers are not on the hook for the $8,000, as well as that there's no access issues. Someone to voice their opinion should not have to pay $9 to park. I just don't think that that's fair, and that's all I was looking. So, I mean, if you have a better motion, I just thought that the institutions of higher learning are free, as well as all public buildings are free. But I don't care where they're held, as long as there's no fee to residents, and as well as we don't spend dollars that could go to advertising or the zoo or aquariums on coffee and Danishes.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Yes, sir. And in there, Commissioner Tobias, you had put in there available at no cost and in a location freely accessible to the public. So I think you grabbed it right there. I think you did pretty well in there.
Commissioner Lober?
Just a quick thought as well, and I think it's already covered by the county manager having authority to waive the policy in writing. The only concern I would have if that weren't in there, which is a great inclusion on your part, is if we couldn't otherwise accommodate a particular group in the facilities that are available to us. I wouldn't want to tie our hands, but I think we're fine based upon the county manager having the ability to waive that, so I'm happy with it.
Make a motion to approve this motion.
Motion by Commissioner,
I'll second it.
motion by Commissioner Pritchett,
Wait, Commissioner
What?
Tobias want to be in on this?
I'll just vote for it. It's fine.
second by Commissioner Lober. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Okay, item J5. Hi. Is Donna Post here?
I am speaking for him, her husband, John Post, from Melbourne Beach.
Okay, is that okay, Ms. Bentley? Okay,
Okay.
just making
Thank
sure
you.
we're following the rules.
No, it's quite all right, and thank you very much for your time. I know it's probably been a real long day for you all, but I have great respect for the work that you do. Got a little snippet of it today, sitting here this evening.
I'm sorry.
Vast amount of issues and dealings that you have. It's a lot. So it kind of pales to compare when we start talking about turtles on the beach. Dogs on the beach with turtles. But I appreciate you giving us the time. It is an emotional decision for the residents of Melbourne Beach, but I think it's one that we can have a compromise about. I think initially, when we first started with this, that we weren't as educated about the entire stretch that we were talking about. So the report that came out from, I think it was the Parks Director, educated us a lot, and really I think that we have to amend the initial request. I think there is a room for a compromise. I think one of the things that I read in the 68 beaches along Florida that have gotten us approved before, one thing I'd like to see, and especially due to the fact of the Archie Carr refuge that we have, I would initially have people have a license to allow a dog, to have a dog on the beach, if it were to be passed, that gives them all the specific guidelines, whether as it relates to the marine life and the habitat and everything that the county would like to see. That kind of gives a safeguard to the county on any liabilities that can come upon them should a law like this, ordinance like this be passed. But really, I think it needs to be condensed. I think that we have to look outside of the Archie Carr Refuge. There are areas in that South Beach portion that we could have another dog access to. We could also look at just the timeline outside of turtle season. Okay, again, just looking for a compromise, looking for options, that we have a restricted time limit of 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., with a license that has to be received, penalties if people don't keep their dog on a leash and don't pick up after it, and do that on a timeline outside of turtle season. I'm just hoping that the commissioners of the board, along with the federal agencies that have interest in this, could look to see if there's a way to what I believe is a majority of the residents, full year-round residents within Melbourne Beach that are really looking to have this capability without upsetting the natural landscape and anything to do with Archie Carr. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, I have quite a few cards here. Commissioner Pritchett?
Yes, I just want to say this. We've gotten a lot of response from the general public, so I just kind of wanted to let people know where I was, and I read some of the newspaper articles in the paper. So, first of all, I love my dog. We got dogs. We have 3 Shih Tzus. They're just adorable, but I'm not going to be supporting this tonight. And so I thought maybe if the commissioners brought up what they're thinking, we have a lot of comment cards, and I really don't believe this is going to pass, so I thought this might help a lot with public comment. So I thought it might be smart to let the commissioners weigh in. I already read in the newspaper Commissioner Tobias and Commissioner Smith, so I thought this might be just something we could throw out in front, maybe save a lot of time and save people a lot of nervousness coming up and directing at the commission.
Commissioner Lober?
I think that's a great idea. I think we can, obviously, if people want to speak, God bless them. You're more than welcome to come up before there's any sort of formal vote. But my position, when I looked at this, I love dogs, but I have turtles on my license. So it was one where I had this internal turmoil in terms of, well, what is it that they're proposing and what's the impact going to be? And my concern, first and foremost, is to talk about, and I may be wrong about the exact length of this area, but 11-point-something miles. If we were talking about a particular block, I might be more receptive to it. What I would need to see before I'd even consider supporting something like this is that it be narrowed to a much smaller area, that the area preferably have as little impact to the environment, be it turtles or any other creature that happens to be there as possible. And I really would like to see this go through the commission office for that particular district, whether it ends up in D5 or D3, whatever the case may be. But with what I've seen tonight, I'm not opposed to, at some point in the future here, whether it's in a meeting or 3 meetings or 10 meetings, approving a certain stretch of the beach for dogs. I can't approve anything along the lines of what was proposed. I'm just not there. I would love to take my dog to a beach, but I also don't want them gobbling up sea turtle eggs, even if they may be nutritious. So I'm not there. I don't know how I could be brought there this evening. I think there's too much that needs to be done with it. If this is something that people really want to see, as I said, please go through your commissioner's office, because whatever district this ends up being in, if it comes back, if that commissioner doesn't support it, the chance I'm going to support it is essentially non-existent.
Commissioner Pritchett?
I was just going to recommend that same thing. I love citizen suggestions, but this really needs to start in the commissioner of the district's office and see if he has support of it. So I think that's probably the better path, because we end up with these things on our agenda items on things that we don't have any commission support for. And so I think it's just more fair for the public to be able to have that process too, so they're not staying here all night for an item that we don't have support of from the commission. It's just better to start with the commissioner of the district.
Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think it's wonderful that Commissioner Lober likes dogs and turtles, because I don't like dogs or turtles.
And he's not kidding. That's the sad part.
But all animals altogether. And I appreciate the deference paid to this being my district, but I think it's unfair that, the constituents may be on the opposite side of where I am. There are many environmental issues, and that's one of the reasons why I'm against this. But I certainly, though I don't always agree, I know their hearts are always in the right place up here. So on this one, I would say you're more than welcome to my office, as is anyone. But I would happily discuss it. If just because I represent a large part of the beaches, I certainly would not take it as a affront if any commissioner brought it forward, I think that we could discuss it and go from there. So I'd like to go against my commissioners here, saying it's got to get the okay of absolutely not. If it goes down 3-2, that's a Democrat, or 4-1, that's a Democratic process. I certainly don't want to be, unless it's speed bumps. I'm adamantly against speed bumps. Okay, so
We got dogs, we got turtles, speed bumps, what else?
the list, it would be too late. So thank you again for bringing this forward. Please meet, if you hone it down, that's a great way. Meet with the other commissioners, and I would be more than willing to listen intently to the debate as we move forward. But please don't consider me a veto on this one.
Okay. I have a lot of public comment cards. I'm just going to save, this isn't a public hearing, so I can kind of tell you my thoughts on this. There's no part of this that I like, and it's not because it's 11 miles. It's because we have designated areas for dogs. It's a health and safety issue for me. I love the turtles. I love the eggs. I hatchlings and all that good stuff, all that environmentally fluffy stuff. This isn't even about that. To me, this is like a health and safety issue, like a human health and safety issue. So because in reality, there are more responsible pet owners than others, and there's enough gross things on our beaches, and we have designated areas for dogs. We don't have enough animal control officers now to manage the animal control problems we have not on the beach, which is something else, hopefully the sheriff will be open to discussion with, putting more of those guys to handle some of our feral cat issues, which is another nightmare of mine. But there's no way I'm going to support this. And I welcome every one of these cards, and I will listen, but I can tell you, it's not going to change my mind. So, and the thing that frustrated me the most about this is that a lot of people were like sending pretty exciting emails, and this wasn't brought by any of us. This was a citizen request, which is great. It's their right, but don't always assume a commissioner's pushing this issue when it's a citizen request, please. Because we spent a lot of staff time trying to tell residents. We had some residents still arguing with us after the fact, saying, well, why aren't you giving me your position? Well, because I already knew how 3 of my commissioners were going to vote before I even got here. That's why I'm glad that we're having this discussion now before public comment. That's why I don't talk about my vote with the media at all beforehand. But I don't do that by email with constituents either. Because if someone gets it wrong, or someone in essence is a conduit to another commissioner, I don't want to be responsible for that. So I'm sorry that that some of you, were impassioned about coming out here and yelling at us for doing this. I don't think there's anybody up here doing this at all.
Can I jump in just real quick?
Sure.
And I just want to be pretty blunt about it, because it's not been said bluntly enough. If you are inclined to speak, obviously come up and speak, but the part that I think went unsaid is, if you want to pass, knowing where everyone is, everyone can get home a little bit earlier, including the folks in the audience, so feel free to do whatever you'd like to do with respect to that.
You can get up and sing a song for 3 minutes, as long as it's about dogs on a beach. Okay, Jeremy Edwardson, and after Jeremy, James McGrath. You came all this way, you might as well say something, right?
So, my name is Jeremy Edwardson. I'm the Deputy Project Leader for Everglades Headwaters National Wildlife Refuge Complex. So out of our office, we also manage Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge, and I serve as the refuge manager. So admittedly, I may modify my my speech, given, you guys, the way you've talked, and even the person that brought on the proposal as well, too, with their mindset. But I'd like to take a little bit of time to, explain more about the refuge itself. So Archie Carr Refuge is, collectively a 20-mile stretch that includes both County, Brevard and Indian River County. And, about 12 miles or 13 miles is Brevard County. Out of that, we, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service manages or owns just about 3.5 miles of that too. So, but it's not all in one stretch. As you can kind of see the maps, it's all, spread out. And, so it's kind of a checkerboard approach. So, but the reason why the Archie Carr Refuge works, and why we have over 21,000 nests just from this year in Brevard County, alone is that it's a partnership approach. So it's not just us leading the drive to manage this multi-agency refuge. So it's private landowners, county, state, but it's collectively together as the Archico working group, which I co-chair, that I've been able to work closely with a lot of the Brevard County employees and staff, and also about 20 other agencies and organizations that a lot of those are here today too. And so collectively, we work together to help manage this refuge, and that's why it's such a success. It brings over $14.5 million in revenue to the area too. Also, a lot of that is because of the sea turtles, but not only sea turtles, but it's the shorebirds and the public, the beach use, and we support appropriate beach use, specifically to the dog issue. Even despite the county ordinance, we wouldn't be able to allow dogs on beach for within our managed lands, because it has to go through first, is it appropriate, and then is it compatible, and it doesn't even make the appropriate list. So that's why we're so hopeful that we can have a good working relationship with the county, and that way it'll help us with our management too, because it would be a tough management issue if we've got to manage each one of our parcels to keep dogs off our beach. So hopefully you got at least an introduction to the refuge and myself too. And so let me know if you guys have any specific questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. James McGrath. And after James, Carol Nash.
Hi, my name is James McGrath. I live at 6400 South Highway A1A, Melbourne Beach. And I am totally against having dogs on the beach. I see it every day. I see people flagrantly violate the law by not only do they bring the dogs on the beach, they're unleashed. Okay? But, I don't know what it is today. It seems like every facet of our life, people with dogs want to inject it into your life. I can't even go to a restaurant now and sit outside and have alla fresca, eat, without a dog being there. I can't go on a plane because it's explosive in the last 5 years, 10 years, having these emotional support dogs on planes. Now we want to put them on the beaches. We already have a beach right now, Canova Beach, that allows dogs. But the only thing is, I don't know if you folks ever read a thing called, there's a thing called a site, and it's bringfido.com. And I went to the site, and I actually read some of what people who have dogs go there. I like to read just a couple of excerpts. Here's one. A few off-leash dogs were swimmers and just fetching your toys. One large Mastiff dog had diarrhea, and the owner didn't even clean it up. And some unneutered male began pee on my umbrella. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but I won't. And this is on the beach. I mean, it's really health and safety. I hear about the turtles and all that, but if you step on feces, if somebody has a dog that has a hookworm, you have a very good chance of humans contacting hookworm. I mean, it really is people. It's not, I'm all for the environment. I'm a dog owner too, but I will not take my dog to a beach. I won't do that. I mean, if people can't even be responsible to pick up the dog feces in the street, how are they going to be responsible to pick up dog feces on a beach? They won't, because there are irresponsible dog owners. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Vince? Lamb?
I thought you had one before, no?
Carol waved.
Oh, she waved. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Now you called her out. Just kidding.
I just want to make sure we didn't skip you.
No.
So I feel a little guilty taking your time on this, but I will assure you, this has taken a lot of my time.
Name
already.
and
When it got launched, I'm a board member of the Friends of the Car Refuge, which is a nonprofit that is associated with the refuge. We do fundraising for the refuge. We lead the turtle walks for the refuge. And, I've spent 16 nights on the beach leading turtle walks in the past 2 months, sharing the turtle experience. Clearly the board of the Friends of the Carr Refuge has taken has voted to oppose this, but also that, that we're certainly willing to discuss, what other options might exist. We really think that maybe a dog park north of the refuge. We see no potential for dogs being allowed on the beach inside the refuge because U.S. Fish and Wildlife in their comprehensive management plan has banned dogs from the refuge. The state park has banned dogs from the beaches and in the water at the state park down there. So that's a good, and this is like the 11 miles from or 13 miles rather, from the inlet north. The other thing to think about, we think about turtles mostly, but actually the shorebirds and the seabirds are a big issue here too, that they're migrating and they're landing on these beaches to rest when they're in these multi-thousand mile migrations. And even a dog on a leash is going to scare a migrating bird back into having to fly again and waste energy. So anyway, I love the fact that we were predisposed to not allow the dogs in the Carr Refuge, and so thanks very much.
And you didn't give us your name, Vince.
Right.
Vince Lamb of Merritt Island. He was talking before I could interrupt him.
Yeah, I'll claim him. He's one of mine.
Janet Thorne. And after Janet, Sarah Rhodes Andy.
Janet Thorne, Cape Shores Drive in Cape Canaveral, Florida. I just wanted to say that I'm a dog lover, but I'm absolutely against having dogs on the beach. And one thing that was not mentioned is that the sea turtles are an endangered species, which means nationally they are ranked at the very top of animals that we're to try to protect, and the least damage that can happen to them is not disturbing them, not digging up eggs, not disturbing the hatchlings and so on. So we need to provide that level of protection for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah? And then Gail Kennedy, or Kenny?
Thank you for allowing us to address you this evening. My name is Sarah Rhodes Ondy, and I represent the Sea Turtle Conservancy, a private nonprofit that has been protecting sea turtles for 60 years. Brevard County's Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge hosts the single most important sea turtle nesting beach in the United States. The refuge is a nesting ground for more threatened loggerhead turtles than virtually any place else on Earth, as well as for green and leatherback sea turtles. Decades of tireless work and millions of dollars spent by governmental agencies, nonprofit organizations such as the Sea Turtle Conservancy, and foundations successfully created and protected the refuge as a safe haven for turtles. A recent movement to open up the refuge to domestic dogs threatens this progress. A group of local Brevard residents is pushing forward a proposal to allow dogs on 11 miles of the refuge between 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. daily, stretching from Sandy Shoes Resort all the way to the Sebastian Inlet. STC has extensive experience in monitoring and protecting sea turtle nesting beaches in Florida and in the Caribbean. On some of these beaches, dogs have been documented as a major threat to sea turtles. Dogs sniff out turtle nests, and they dig them up. They're also known to predate live hatchlings ready to emerge and scare off adult nesting sea turtles. Sea turtles, especially the hatchlings, have plenty of wild predators without humans introducing large numbers of domestic predators. This stretch of beach owned by county, state, and federal governments falls under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service management plan that does not allow dogs and cats on federally owned property. Brevard County would be vulnerable to a Federal Endangered Species Act lawsuit if this plan moves forward, and any impacts to sea turtle nests are documented. The refuge is one of the most heavily studied nesting beaches in Florida, so any predation incidents by dogs would be swiftly recorded. In the Sebastian Inlet State Park, dogs are not allowed on the beaches or in the water. Up to this point, Brevard County has stood in solidarity with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Florida Park Service by not allowing dogs on their beaches within the Carr Refuge. The patchwork of land ownership within the Carr Refuge would make enforcement of any dog-friendly ordinance or designated beach very difficult for staff and confusing for residents. This year has been a record-breaking year for sea turtle nesting in the refuge and across the southeastern U.S. By the end of July 2019, we've had more than 21,000 sea turtle nests. All 3 species of sea turtles that nest in the Carr Refuge are just starting to show signs of recovery. The Carr Refuge in Brevard County is the worst place to allow dogs on the beach. Although many staff members at STC are dog lovers, we oppose allowing dogs to defecate where people and children take their shoes off and play in the sand. It's highly unsanitary for people and very dangerous for sea turtles. Brevard County has a nearby dog beach, Canova Beach Park. This park is located outside the Carr Refuge where the dogs are less likely to encounter sea turtles and located 8.5 miles north of the Sandy Shoes Resort. There are plenty of other places for dogs to play with their families, but the South Brevard beaches were protected for sea turtles.
Thank you. Gail Kenny, and after Gail, Kevin?
I think one of us is probably enough. It's getting late.
Okay.
7797 Highway A1A. I live in South Melbourne Beach. We've been on the ocean for 15 years, and I just love the beach. I love to walk the beach, and it's an impossibility. I just want you to know what's happening and has happened over the past 15 years. There are dogs running loose all over the beach, and it's impossible for anyone who doesn't have a dog with them to enjoy the beach. I have dealt with the animal control people. I've had dogs come out of the houses and charge me. I wasn't getting anywhere. I videoed these dogs, and finally, the control people did talk to them and find the people. You walk down the beach, the dogs are running free without leashes. They're coming up to you, they're barking, they're circling you. People sit on the beach and say, "Oh, he won't hurt you, he's a nice doggy." Well, I don't want to have to deal with it when I'm walking the beach. I don't want them running around me and threatening me. I don't know the dog. So the situation is totally out of control down there. Nobody is obeying the ordinances, and I'd like them, to be enforced. My husband was backed into the ocean by a dog, and he had his iPhone in listening to a book, and his iPhone was trashed because a wave came and crashed over him and pushed him under. The dog owner did pay for the phone because she didn't want to be reported for it, but it's impossible. I don't even walk the beach anymore. So I'd like to say that beyond the turtles and beyond, I've seen the people kick a little sand over the feces from my top steps. Beyond stepping on the dog feces is a matter of, we have a right to enjoy the beach too. And to let your dogs run around and come up to people and not even control them is, to me, very, very poor manners. So I'm just wanted you to know that it's not where it should be. And I'm adamantly opposed to anything that would make it worse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Kevin's not going to speak?
I think she did a good enough job. I'll just say that I physically attacked my dog.
You got to come to the
For
mic.
you to speak, please.
Kevin Kenny, South Melbourne Beach. I've been physically attacked. I'm a big guy. 3 times. One was a Great Dane, almost as big as me. Another one was a pit bull owned by one of the neighbors, been cited numerous times by the dog people, and she lets them roam all the time. Another was by a Doberman. These are not friendly people dogs down here. 95%, maybe more, don't have leashes. And so, and it's our backyard, by the way. I mean, there's access under the high water mark, but that's actually our backyard, most of that beach out there. And with these people, like my dog, to go running around their backyard with no leashes and doing whatever they want to do, I mean, and I don't understand it, because if one of those people's dog bit me, they are in a tremendous legal liability with that, really big time. So I think we need more enforcement now, because it's blatant. I guarantee you, went to my house any day, I don't care what day it is, there'd be 50 to 100 dogs on my property. Thank you.
Thanks. Lisa Herendeen? Is it Herndine? Herendeen. And then Mark after Lisa?
Good evening. I am definitely changing my speech, but I have to tell you.
Name and city or name and address?
Lisa Herendeen, Melbourne Beach.
Thanks.
County. I'm just shocked that I would come to a meeting like this, and I thought that everything was going so well. It seemed like everyone up there had good synergy, that you guys were sharing and discussing things back and forth. And I just feel extremely disappointed to know that each and every one of you basically came with a predetermined decision in your mind already on your own personal opinions. And I think that we vote for you so that you will stand up there and represent the citizens, and the citizens should be listened to. And then to say that we might want to waive our 3 minutes of public speech, to me, I find rather insulting. So I have to put that on the record. I had to stand up here and say something. I am one of the people that would like the dogs to be allowed on the beach. And for the reason that, if you are familiar with the South Beaches, there are only 8 public access points. So I know that we have a refuge. I look forward to turtle season almost as much as I look forward to Christmas, and I'm not kidding. We go down there, we cannot wait to see the nests. We look for them, we educate people because they come down there, they carry their white flashlights, they don't know. People are a much bigger threat to turtles than I know my small dog would ever be. And personally, we have over 32 private access points. So each neighborhood has their own access point. We have a private beach, and we have a river park. And not everyone has that, but there are 32 private beach access points that are basically governed by the individual HOAs. So we can bring our dog to our public spot right there, but we cannot walk them down the steps onto the beach. And I just want to make sure that everybody realizes that, because if you look at the map, I don't think that you do, that only 2 public spots that you can even park on south of that area that was proposed are Coconut Point, and I believe it's Bondsteel. And there's another, no, I think Bondsteel is actually the one that's not even paved. So it's not like you're opening this up to a huge amount of public cars and dogs and people. It's basically the residents that choose to live down here in this really beautiful unincorporated area, and they just want to take their dog out before the beach is crowded, before there's any activity. I know, as Mr. Post mentioned, the citizens were willing to look at a compromise, maybe even off turtle season or just something to be considered. So, I really hope that if there's some more research done, that people will consider things. I saw a comment in the paper about, it having to be, if it was before in the morning and then after certain hours, that there weren't going to be any lifeguards to monitor that activity. We don't have lifeguards south of Spessard-Holland Beach. Not off-season, not in-season. So, I just think that we need a little bit more education. I love turtles, and I also would love the opportunity for those people. I hate that the few ruin it for the many. Thank you.
Did you have something you wanted?
Just real briefly, I do want to point something out, because I'd hate for anyone to have the wrong impression in terms of why people may come up here with an idea already in mind. Prior to coming here, and I'm looking right now at the stack of comment cards that we have, I had an exponentially greater number of individuals reach out to my office by email, by phone, and I think all but 2 or 3 were opposed to this. It wasn't even close. We had our little sticks and slashes after every fifth, and it filled the page. It was so one-sided. It's not that my personal opinion is one thing or another. It's that the public comment that I got before I ever even showed up here was so one-sided. Barring something that's totally reverse of that, I just didn't see there being any real possibility that I would see a drastically different response from the public here than elsewhere. And it's something where, everyone is ultimately responsible for the bulk of their constituents. And by and large, I'm not saying they're not exceptions. If 95+% of my constituents want one thing or don't want one thing, there's got to be a real extenuating reason for me to disregard that and put it to the side. I respect what you're saying, and I apologize if what I said came across the wrong way in terms of people considering waiving their time. By all means, I respect your right to be here. I appreciate that you came. I appreciate that you waited through as many hours as you did, and I would never do anything to discourage folks who do want to come up to come up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tafaya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And since this is my district, and you're more than welcome to public record request this, 91.8% of the people that I received direct communications from concerning this issue did not want dogs on the beach. That is 122 emails and phone calls that I got. We log them all, and 112 of them were adamantly opposed to this. So I understand you're part of the other side, but understand that you're in that 8%, not the 92%. So when we do go through quite a bit of work, I know Commissioner Lober responds personally back to many of those. I generally wait till after, but either way, I think we did our due diligence on this one, and I'm very confident in saying that I'll be a no on this one.
And I'll just echo what Commissioner Lober and Commissioner Tobias said. It's not that we dismiss your opinion. Everybody's opinion is valuable. I mean, as long as you want to have a friendly conversation, my door is always open. However, aside from the overwhelming amount of people absolutely opposed to it, this was not an agenda-driven item. This wasn't a staff-driven item. This was a citizen-driven item. So,
Which should be welcomed.
absolutely. And that citizen has it on the agenda, and it was discussed and everything else. But I don't want to waste anybody else's time by having them go up there and plead and beg with me to not allow it, because that was the majority, or to allow it and you not knowing where I stand. So the opposite. I believe that I did the audience and more my constituent a service by letting you know how I feel. So you can view it that way, but I can promise you it's no disrespect. There was no way that I was going to feel any different. And we've been doing this a while, so it's not like it's a piece of property that's getting rezoned or something that we're just learning about. This is an area that we're familiar with, and these are areas that we're all familiar with, and we've all done our research on for many years, and not just over the past 5 days or 2 hours. So I just wanted to let you know that. Ms. Pritchett?
Yeah, just real quickly too, this probably should have been brought up under public comment, or gone to a commission office for sponsorship. If this would have come in public comment, we could have decided if it's something we wanted to pick up and do some work on. I think we're going to have to move forward with maybe changing this process a little bit so that we can start doing research before things come up and see if there is anything viable. But I think we're going to work to try to change this right now so we don't have frustrated citizens. But again, anything that would be brought forth without us being able to spend time, and I'm not going to support. And I haven't got that, but if you came and visit, since Commissioner Tobias said it's okay, you come and visit my office, there's a possibility that we can do some research on it, but this probably isn't the best setting right now, because you're just frustrated.
I am. And
I know.
I just
So
recently met.
I know.
But I understand.
I'm not trying to get in a conversation with you right now, but I'm just
Okay.
letting you know I understand. But the process now is to pick up the phone, call one of us, and let's see if we can get something sponsored, because we've had a few of these happen lately, and we're spending hours on things that none of us are supporting it at that time, and we're getting off of county
Because
business a bit.
I just
Thank
want you to
ma'am.
know that she
Thank
was-
you. I'm
Okay.
good, thank
Yeah,
you.
your public comment's over. If we allow dialogue back and forth, we could sit here for another 20 minutes, and I have another stack of cards. So, Mark Herndon?
Hi, good evening, Mark Herendeen.
Herendeen, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, fine. It's unfortunate that a large number of people ruin it for the majority. I will echo that I'm a responsible dog owner, and I'll keep the comment brief by saying dogs have been on the beach for decades. They'll continue to be on the beach. I'll continue to pick up after my dog. I hope more research is done. I understand the concern, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
John Post and Sherry Cook? John Post? Sherry Cook?
Going once, going twice.
I'm looking. Dina?
Thank you.
Really? Okay. Gail Meredith? Okay.
She left.
I know who she is. I didn't see her out there. Roz Frias?
Freyas?
Frias? I'm sure I got it wrong. I apologize if I messed up your name.
Sorry to be so late tonight. I came here because I didn't think
Can you
there'd
give
be-
your name and address or
Oh.
name and city?
My name is Roz Fries. I live on South Tropical Trail, Merritt Island. And I came as I think, a responsible dog owner. I've lived here in the county for over 20 years. And prior to passing the law where we could not take dogs on the beach, I took my dog all the time on a leash. I picked up after the dog. I never had a problem. And I didn't see all these horrific things I'm hearing talked about by the condo owners who look down and talk about all these vicious dogs. In other countries, dogs walk on the beach. In California, Oregon, other states, dogs are much more free than they are in Florida. So I wanted to speak up as the dog owners who do care and who are responsible, who do want access. I'm a turtle lover. I have a turtle license plate. I give to the turtle people. My dog has never seen a turtle nest or done anything bad, despite years of walking on the beach. We don't have to have a problem if people are responsible, but as the last gentleman said, many people ruin it for everybody. So I would ask that the commissioners be open-minded and come up with some sensible proposal where we can have some access to some beach. I don't want to drive down to Jupiter, which is very dog-friendly, and they have a 10-mile stretch where you don't even have to have a dog on a leash. They have a volunteer program down there where the community picks up, has bags and trash receptacles, and they really don't have a problem. It's an asset to the community and one that people love. I would prefer not living in a dog-unfriendly county because we have so many pet owners that need access to exercise, not only for themselves, but also for their dogs. As a physician, I know how important exercise is, and I realize that we need this access, and I hope you can just compromise in some manner and have a trial period for us. I would put a diaper on my dog if I could take it to the beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just real briefly.
Commissioner Lober?
Just real briefly, I don't want anyone to get the impression, at least as far as I'm concerned, that I'm totally unwilling to consider any beach area for dogs. I just want to echo and at least perhaps say it a little bit with greater clarity. If the request is narrowed down, instead of being 11 point something miles to a particular block or a couple blocks in somewhere where the environmental impact of it is a little bit better controlled or understood at least.
I agree.
If that's what's brought forward, I could get behind something like that, but the problem is it's just so broad. I don't want to say that it's up to us to narrow down a request that none of us formulated. Really, the onus, in my estimation, is on the individuals that put this forth to try to
Do you
narrow
have
this down.
questions for the speaker? I'm just asking because I just discouraged this back and
Yeah,
forth with the
yeah.
last
Okay,
speaker, and I
okay.
don't want
All right, you're right,
to
you're right.
break any
But-
rules.
Yeah,
There should be
I
a
just wanted to
compromise
clarify
made of
that.
some sort, so thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're right.
I mean, you can talk, but I didn't want it to divulge into a conversation.
You're right.
and- Okay.
I'm with you.
Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you. And just as a point of reference, we do have beaches in Brevard County. You don't have to drive to Jupiter. We have Cocoa Beach, which has 12 blocks. We have Canova Beach. We have Sampson Island, which is part of Satellite Beach. So you're more than welcome to drive to Jupiter, but you're also welcome to stay here in Brevard County and go to a number of beaches.
And we just opened up a bunch of dog parks too in the county, but. All right. Item number 6. Kevin Panic?
All right, make sure I know how to operate these charts. I got some charts that should be showing. There's my IT guy. Oh, there we go. Kevin Panic, 623 Oakwood Place, Titusville, Florida. Honorable Commissioners, Brevard County leaders. There's an image of me in 2016 at this podium, another image of me at 2017 at this podium. I haven't changed my request that the county stop routine mowing over roadside litter. Okay, the arrows aren't working. Mouse? Okay. My 3rd-year anniversary being here. Can't say it's very happy. Where did we leave off year 2? Well, let's remember year 1. I came here naively asking just to stop it. Pretty naive. I've never donated to anybody's political campaign, and I'm just one person. Action year 2, I asked, please continue mowing over the litter, and let's study the problem. I asked that you task staff to just look at the problem in a formal study, trying a little reverse psychology. That didn't seem to work, although you did come through on action 1. You continued to routinely, by management direction, mow over roadside litter. Why did we only complete one of the 2 actions? I'm going to go ahead and give it that you didn't know what to do. So I'm going to go ahead and ask to update action item 2. Go ahead and continue mowing over roadside litter, but let's update action item 2, give you a little better direction. Have county staff make 66 phone calls. Call each county in Florida and get an answer and check the box. Do it 66 times. Technical content. Does your county, fill in the blank, perform mowing over roadside litter as a standard course of business and per management direction? Yes or no? 1 box only. Continuing the action 2, compile this data and post to the Brevard County website within 90 days of today's date. That'd be November 6th. 66 phone calls, 90 days. Now, just I'm a project manager. Does this meet project management principles for a true action? The assignee, yes. I've assigned either county manager or roads and grounds. Is the technical content documented and clearly understood? Yes, I gave that to you on the last chart. Is there a due date and a presentation method documented? Yes, I gave that to you in this chart. I'll go ahead and pre-fill for Brevard County, save you 67 calls. You know, that's why we're doing it, because it's every county. I'll fill in the blank for Brevard. You do, as a standard course of business, mow over roadside litter. So there's your green check on that one. Revising your action 2 was not completed, although you did complete action 1 correctly. You continued to mow over roadside litter as a standard course of business. And assign action 2 within next 10 minutes or next minute or 2, hopefully, by county commission motion and vote. I'd like to say you guys probably know our mission statement from the website, right? You guys know the commission's mission? Well, I'll repeat it for you. Contribute to enhancing and ensuring Brevard's quality of life today and always. I don't see a rhetorical question. I don't.
Thank you, sir. Your time's up. I'll just say in the last 2 years, that gentleman that just spoke and one other email are the only 2 complaints I've gotten about our county staff running over roadside trash. Although I believe it happens, I don't believe it's nearly escalated to the point to where my citizens are freaking out. And I know I've discussed this with county staff before, and I know perhaps other commissioners have as well. And, you know, of course, it never intentionally happens, but I simply don't get complaints about it. I mean, I understand you have an issue with it, and I respect that, but it's, in all honesty, I don't know how big of a problem it is other than for you, like where you are or where you're looking, because I don't have that feedback from my residents or from people that call my office or write to my office. So unless other commissioners have that problem, I don't get that feedback from my district. Nobody? Okay.
Yeah, I've never gotten a complaint of that nature apart from this.
Okay. All right. Add-ons, item number 7. Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess there's been an update here recently. Would you like to deal, Madam Chair, would you like the county manager to deal with that, or immediate, prior to this, or what?
It's your item, so however
Okay.
you want to proceed.
Okay. On Thursday, after listening to Commissioner Lober at the prior meeting, I suggested taking action regarding the Palm Bay CRA, which is located exclusively in my district. The resolution I'm proposing is a modified version of the resolution Commissioner Lober presented some time ago. The resolution does not shut down the CRA. It does not affect current bond or contractual obligations. It does not substitute the county for the CRA board. All it does is prevent TIF funds from being further obligated for future years. The CRA will still have the authority to spend the collected TIF funds in any given year consistent with their approved project plan. I would like to note, after the suggestion of Mr. Abate, a minor change was made this morning which would have required his office to take action that were unnecessary in this context. However, it would seem that Palm Bay staff has expressed a willingness to bring the option of sunsetting the CRA early as an alternative to this board taking further action. I greatly appreciate this effort. In order to allow negotiations to continue, I'm willing to amend this resolution to have it sunset on October 8th. If Palm Bay does not agree to the ILA, which will sunset the CRA in 2022, I have no intention of reinstituting this resolution. If they do not, however, I would consider proposing something more in the line with what was proposed with the Diamond Square CRA, with our board invoking our authority to substitute ourselves for the CRA in the financial interests of the county. So my motion will be to adopt the resolution with the addition of a sunset clause of October the 8th.
Second.
Okay, we have the city manager here, along with the CRA director. If the commission's okay with it, you guys have something you want to talk about? You're good? Okay. Mr. Abate?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. We have been working with the city staff, and we're glad to see them here. We appreciate that. In fact, once we knew this resolution was coming on, we contacted them, and so we've been in that dialogue and anticipating that this board was had a strong feeling that you were headed toward this resolution in light of what happened at the last meeting. If this board gives direction that we seek to enter into an interlocal agreement that ends the CRA in 2022, that the staff would bring that back to the city council. And so we're really looking for that direction rather than going in the resolution currently as it was proposed. We're thankful to Commissioner Tobias that he's willing to let us look at trying to get this interlocal agreement, which meets the board's, in a variety of the guidelines, but most importantly, it would be shortening that CRA 2 years in light of what they've done to reduce the debt by paying off part of their bond early.
All right, I would just caution, and I appreciate the city. I mean, they have new management now, so I'm hopeful, but I've been down here before, and we've been made promises and that haven't come through, so we're going to hold you to it. Otherwise, we're going to revoke our authority and become the board, because I stuck my neck out on the line for Palm Bay based on information that I was told to present to this board, and that information changed. So again, I'm okay with what Commissioner Tobias proposed. I just want to make sure that it actually happens this time.
May I?
Yes, Commissioner Lober?
And just to remove any ambiguity whatsoever, and I feel bad for the two of you that have to come and essentially be in this particular position, let's phrase it that way. But I think you understand where he is. I think you understand where she is. I'm in the exact same boat. So this is one where my patience is admittedly rather thin with it, and it's not necessarily either of you. It probably isn't either of you. But I would really suggest, to the degree that you're able, if it's something that you want to have worked out, that you do what you can in order to facilitate that happening, because it's a foregone conclusion if it's not resolved in a way that the county manager suggests to us is potentially appropriate.
Okay, with that, I'm going to call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, I don't have any public comment cards. So board reports, Mr. Bate?
I have just one report that I'm pleased to tell you about. Brevard County's Valkyria Airport, out of about 112 general aviation airports in the state, has won the Florida Department of Transportation's General Aviation Airport of the Year Award, which was announced this week during statewide continuing Florida aviation system planning process in a meeting they had in Fort Lauderdale. I'm told that airport manager Steve Borowski will be recognized and receive this award during a luncheon event on tomorrow, Wednesday. Steve is being recognized for turning what was viewed as a minimally functional airport to a compliant and operational self-supporting airport that is a community and state aviation asset. I'd like to congratulate Steve and the Valkyria Airport staff for this significant and valued recognition.
That's amazing. We're going to do a resolution for them.
Yeah, we will follow up, but we wanted to share this information with the board now that we just found out about it.
All right, let's do that. So say something positive about the airport. It would feel good.
Yeah.
About any airport at this point. All right, Ms. Bentley?
No report.
Ms. Pritchett?
No report.
Mr. Lober?
Pass.
Mr. Tafaya?
No report, ma'am.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, I'd like to give a shout out to the Viera Little League and recognize a couple of fantastic baseball teams with the Viera Sun Tree Little League. Both the Little League majors and the juniors were the Florida State champions, which in itself is a big, big deal. This week they competed in their respective Southeast regional tournaments. The Viera Sun Tree Little League juniors, they won their Southeast championship game with timely hitting, slick fielding, and power pitching. In fact, they did so well that they invoked the mercy rule for the other team because they jumped out to a 16-1 lead in the fourth inning. So they won. And they will now be playing in the Junior Division World Series in Taylor, Michigan, beginning Sunday. So congratulations to the team, the coaches, and the parents. And I want to remind everyone that the Rockledge Juniors won the World Series back in 2012. So as one of my staff put it, so now Brevard is not only known for its beaches and blast-offs at the Cape and for our world-class cruise port, we're now known for birthing Little League baseball stars.
That's great. All right, and all my infinite wisdom here, I've did a little Google search on Crime Stoppers for Commissioner Tobia. And at least according to this one of many websites, they're funded by private donations and annual fundraising events. No tax dollars are involved. The reward monies paid out by the program is from fundraising and donations from concerned citizens and businesses. So although I think we were both wrong because I assumed that it was from forfeiture funds, you assumed maybe partially funded by tax dollars, but at least according to my crude search, it's not funded by either. But I know we used to spend our forfeiture funds paying for SROs in schools, so there's a good thing there, but Crime Stoppers is not funded by the government.
I have a feeling this will not be the first time you find me wrong. So, keep at it,
And you know what? And I wouldn't have an issue with it if you just didn't get so righteous about it. All right, with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.